Good evening and welcome to the Claw Studio at the Royal Opera House. I'm Sarah Crompton and I'm delighted to be here to introduce this special Insight evening about Wayne McGregor's new production of MADDADDAM, which is based on an extraordinary trilogy of novels by the great Canadian writer, Margaret Atwood. It's lovely to have Wayne, the choreographer, here with me, and Uzma Hamid, who's his dramaturg and key collaborator. And I think really, believer in beginning at the beginning. Wayne, how did you decide that this epic trilogy of books would make a good theme for dance, a dance work?
A good theme for dance. Hi, everyone. Well, it was quite a long time ago now. It was around 2017. So pre-pandemic, and I was in Canada. I had just finished restaging a piece that I'd originally made at the Paris Opera called Genesis, which is a piece about Darwin. And Margaret Atwood had always been on our amazing list of potential collaborators, people that we really wanted to work with. And I asked the incredible Karen Kane, who is the director of National Ballet of Canada, if she knew Margaret, and could she invite her to the show. And so Margaret came to the show. Wrote me a beautiful note. This piece was about Darwin, as I said, and she wrote me a beautiful note about her childhood, about collecting things, about the nature of storytelling. So I thought that was an amazing opening to be able to say, oh, by the way, can we? And so I went to have another meeting with her to see if we could do her work, if we could make a piece around her work, and we kind of landed on this MADDADDAM trilogy, which is a complete, huge, epic piece of writing. Really, it really is widescreen. We've talked a little bit about it being immersive reality in a way. It's kind of VR without the goggles, and it really is quite a complex series of novels, but really extraordinary, and it's so visually literate. And Margaret was so open in that first meeting. She said, I really want you to, I really want you to dive into that world and make your own version of that trilogy, and so that's what we started.
Which is a really nice thing, because obviously you've collaborated before and on making works based on books, but your previous collaborators, Dante for the Divine Comedy and Virginia Woolf for Woolf Works, haven't been around to have an opinion.
Oh, they have.
What kind of differences did it make working with Margaret? I mean, what kind of relationship began to develop?
Well, she was incredibly generous, wasn't she? I mean, she really, in our first meeting, kind of said, I'm really happy for you to just, have fun with it and do how you want to interpret the ballet. So she wasn't at all hands-on, but it did mean a lot to have that permission, if you like, because I guess the difference with a living writer, and one of such amazing stature as well, is that it could be quite daunting. You do want to do the work justice, you do want her to like it, so it was great that she's been so supportive throughout.
And did you know the novels before Wayne came and said, let's have a look at them? Or had you engaged with them? What was your first impression of them?
Oh gosh, I mean, I love the novels. I think of her work, this is probably my favourite, and that's probably not just because I spent several years kind of deep diving into it. I love this idea of the way in which she's moved from something that, in a way, the feminism of The Handmaid's Tale to this kind of ecofeminism, where ideas of how we are impacting the land, the climate, the earth, which is our inheritance, sort of coincide with the feminism and the way that women are exploited and mistreated as well. And there's something just really powerful about that message.
Yeah. And how did you begin talking about it? I mean, it's always interesting, that conversation between the two of you, of how you start discussing how you're going to turn it into dance.
Well, I mean, I think the first thing you do is you also have to curate the other collaborators that you're going to work with. So, my job is not just a job of choreography, making dance steps. My job is one of kind of curating an amazing team who are going to think through this problem, the problem of staging this incredible set of novels together, and how is it that we work and think through that together. So it's finding a group of people that are going to be able to collectively start and engage with that material in interesting ways. And, you know, we talked a little bit about Margaret being hands-off. I mean, she's had so many different versions of her novels, either translated or made into movies, or, you know, she's very used to this idea of equivalent but not the same. She's very interested anyway in the nature of storytelling and who tells the story, how reliable is the storyteller, what is the nature of story. And so actually an equivalent for her in dance where you don't deal with concreteness in the same kind of way, where you don't deal with explicitness perhaps in a way that you can in a novel. She was very curious about, well, how can you do that through emotion? If we take the emotional content of the work, if we take some of the character relationships of the work, if we take some of the thematic nature of the work, some of the somatic nature, what does it feel like to be engaged and dive into those novels, that's a really kind of like good clue. So in a way, our conversations, first of all, you know, one of the great things that Uzma does at the beginning of a process is really drive out and pull out the main themes of the novels. And she gives us all of the collaborators, she gives us a kind of a really rich document which in some way leans into the specificity of theme or the specificity of character relationships. And then we can start from there to go, well, actually this part really lands with us, this is actually really interesting, this might work well with that. And we start to dialogue about how that might emerge over time.
And Uzma, just for people who haven't read them, just can you give a tiny sort of summary of what the structure of them, what they are about as novels, and then talk about the decisions that you made when you were structuring the piece, which, I mean, I would just say to introduce that broadly the novels are, they develop chronologically, though they play with time.
Yeah.
And your version does not.
And FYI, each of the novels is 13 hours on audiobook, just so you know. So, Uzma, good luck with
summary.
this. Yeah, exactly.
I told you it's going to be very short.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think it's true to say that the novels do move backwards and forwards in time. And one thing that happens is that the first two start and end at the same place. And that place is the aftermath of a global wipeout, which has taken place through the genius of Craik, who is a brilliant scientist, and he can see very clearly that humanity is on a road to disaster. And his solution for this is to engineer a new race of people who are non-aggressive, non-violent, who live in harmony with nature. And in tandem with that, he designs a pill to wipe out humanity and clear the space to make a new Eden for this new people to live in. And so the first two books start at the point where the flood has happened, and we're looking at the survivors' stories. So in the first book, it's Jimmy, who is Craik's best friend, and he's been left with the task of somehow educating these Craikers, as they come to be known, the people that Craik created, into how to live in the world, in this new world. And in the second book, it's the women's stories, Toby and Wren, who have somehow, against all odds, survived what they call the waterless flood, and who then begin to tell us their stories and how they came to be here. And the third novel is then how these communities of survivors come together and begin to create a new life in relation also to the Craikers and to the sort of gene-spliced animals that now populate this new Eden.
Very good. Thank you. Very simple. And so your structure, you decided to approach it in a slightly different way between you. So what made you decide the structure that you two have come
Well,
up
because
with?
it's so complex, it's so interrelated, it's very complicated to tell it as a straightforward story. We never wanted to do that anyway. But in a way, each of our acts don't follow chronologically each of the novels, so that's not going to help you in terms of watching this production. But in a way, if we were thinking about the kind of the central premise for each act, the first act is really an exploration of character relationships. So you see the central characters from the first two novels, and you see their kind of like central emotional relationships in the first act. So it very is much character-driven. It feels like that. The second act is much more collage-like and impressionistic. It's like the central themes. We take kind of some of the big communities and splice them together in a whole range of really interesting time shifts. You know, you have a clock that helps you know where you are, in which year, and whether this is a flashback or if this is moving forwards. But it really is a very like rapid-fire collage of all of those themes together. And then the third act actually is our own speculative fiction. It's almost the fourth book, if we were allowed. So, you know, we kind of like speculate what would this new kind of like species of Quakers and humans, once they mate, what would that kind of utopia look like? And so it's our version of that. And one of the things that I think is really beautiful about that third act is that central to that is how we tell stories. And one of the things that Craig does is he removes symbolic meaning from the Quakers. But over time, they can't help but tell stories again.
Right.
And so that third act is very much their version of the history of all of the novels told in a different way. So it's like oral history. It's changed, it's different, it's been updated, it's not the same. Things have been taken out. Some things have completely been you know, developed and embellished. And so is the story of the novels, or you know, who tells the story and what is the story? And I think all of us reframe our own life experiences in stories that aren't necessarily the real origin story, and that's one of the beautiful things about the novels, and I think hopefully one of the things that really connects well in the dance.
And Uzma, what thematically do you hope people take out of it? Because people talk about, you know, Atwood as a prophet of the present. I mean, everything that happens in these novels, actually, there is the root of it happening now. So what do you hope that the themes that will emerge from it are?
Well, of course, there is something about survival. So we open with a group of very traumatized survivors.
And it must have been so strange doing it when COVID, because it got delayed by COVID, so it must have been so strange doing it.
Exactly, very strange and very raw. And I guess the pandemic, if we needed any further elucidation, made it very clear the sort of path that we are on and the things that can happen. And so I guess that one of the key messages is around, you know, what is going to happen if we continue going down this path? And also, I think, what is our role in being the custodians of the earth? Because Craig obviously thinks his role is to use his incredible intelligence to solve the problem. And so he comes up with what he thinks is a perfect solution. He's not evil, he's just presumptuous, you know, he's hubristic. He sort of thinks that he can solve it by wiping out humanity and creating this perfect race. But as Wayne said, even the race doesn't turn, though he's done the genetic splicing according to a very particular way, they don't behave as he thought they would, and people survive who he didn't think would survive. And so she's questioning, I guess, you know, is our role to be very heavy-handed in that way? On the other hand, Jimmy, his friend, is the person who speaks for the arts, who speaks for humanity, who speaks from the heart. And though he's incredibly flawed, he has this incredible moral compass. So I guess there's also a question about what it means to be human, which further speaks to this new race of Quakers. And how do they speak to, how human are they? You know, are they anything beyond the expression of their genes? Where does humanity lie? So I think these are some of the questions that we're kind of interested in.
And that is what makes it so interesting to do it in dance, because dance is obviously, you know, people always talk about what you lose in novels by putting them into dance, but actually the humanity, in a sense, is part of what dance gives to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think also there's a hopefulness in the Atwood. I think it's not all bleak. And I think, you know, it was interesting, you know, as you touched on then, we started this project before a global pandemic with no real experience of a global pandemic. It was halted because of the pandemic, and then we all lived in that global pandemic. And if you just think about our bodies in that time and the effect that it had on our bodies, the way in which we felt, the way in which we touched or didn't touch, just the kind of the limitations around body and the things that we took so much for granted, and how that embodied knowledge became something that we hadn't experienced before, is very profound when you move out of that situation that we've all experienced and then look back and make a piece about a global pandemic. And so kind of the resonance of the themes, I think, landed in a very, very different way, because we had real an immersion in that environment. And I think that kind of sense of empathy because of that, and the kind of the sense of striving and hopefulness, is something that's also led into the Act 3 part of this program, you know, that actually there is this desire, this need, this openness to improve, to connect, to speak, to touch, to live in a kind of an embodied and beautifully rich somatic experience with somebody else. And so the pandemic was obviously for all of us really difficult, but in some way it's really interesting that is where we've landed now. You know, people say to me, "Oh, why are you making a piece about a pandemic now? You know, why are you doing that? You know, that's just so miserable." But actually, even post-pandemic, many of the themes are still very pertinent, if not more pertinent. And she writes, you know, she says that she writes speculative fiction. She's a massive researcher. You know, everything that she writes about are things which are of contemporary relevance now. They're not like fantasy things that might happen in the future. If she's talking about splicing animal genes together and making hybrid animals, it's because she's read about the science that does that. And I think that's one of the incredible things about Atwood, that she's both activist and she does it in a kind of this speculative fiction way, where in some way it's palatable because it's a fictional story, but at the same time, the resonance and the activism inside the novels is really hard-hitting, and she does it in a range of ways. And that balance of activism and the poetry of the work and the imagination, you know, what we've not touched on is the visual scope of those, you know, of those 3 novels. They're kind of incredible, and when you read them, they're like epic adventures. You know, there's so much richness in color and sound and texture, and so to be able to just jump into that world, both thematically and sensorially, is a real gift, especially for dance. So you asked me about dance, and I think that is why, you know, there's an impact on the body when you read, and there's a sense in which that you absolutely touch everything in those novels through your sense system, your sensing system, which is this incredible instrument that we have, that we know what it's like when we're not sensing properly because we've been through the pandemic. And I think that circularity has been really, really key for some of the stuff that we've been working on.
And you have used some of Atwood's words as well to introduce, I mean, the creation of the world obviously is amazing with the design and costumes and everything. It is a whole sort of creation, but Atwood is there at the centre, isn't she?
Yes, I mean, as Wayne said, we're sort of really interested in the way she talks about storytelling throughout the 3 books and the role that it plays, whether it's for the Quakers to come to understand who they are and where they came from, or whether it's, from Jimmy's point of view, just creating something to keep them quiet, you know, or if it's in Toby's case, a way of recording the days and keeping herself from going crazy in the aftermath of the pandemic. So there's this constant idea of, you know, stories being handed down and what their function is for us. So I think that was really interesting in terms of bringing her words into it, but also we used some of a section from one of her essays, which enabled us really to kind of do on stage what she does in her whole oeuvre, which is kind of smash together all these different forms. And as you said, you know, she's exploring some of these very important scientific questions of our time through fiction, which kind of enables her to kind of take that question and the what if question to the nth degree in a way that maybe a scientific kind of essay wouldn't do. So it's the kind of generic hybridity of her work that gives it its power, and that was something we were also interested to lean into.
I think it's going to be, having seen little bits of it, I think it's going to be an amazingly powerful work. And now we've got the opportunity to see a bit of rehearsal. Okay. So I'm going to say thank you so much to Uzma and Wayne.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we are going to see a bit of rehearsal. So I'm really, really pleased to welcome and ask you to join me in welcoming Royal Ballet Principals Fumi Kaneko, William Bracewell and Joseph Sissons. You've got marks. So I'm really pleased that you've made time to join us tonight. Will, we've talked a little bit about this. This is the moment that you step on stage as an evil genius. Having all how does it feel to be, playing Craig, who wipes out mankind?
Oh, I mean, so liberating. Quite a departure from a role I've played before. I feel like, you know, I don't know, this is not necessarily a good thing. There are aspects of him that I do recognize, and I think, well, yeah, typecast, that's what Wayne said. But yeah, he's hyper intelligent, like, not that one, not that one. That's the one I'm gonna have to work on. He's, this is terrible, sorry. He's like coldly rational and is really not afraid to use people for his own benefit. But there is still like a logic that he has, and I think I am really I'm seeing the logic in his ways, because I'm quite a logical person, and I really value efficiency. I think he does too. But there are big aspects of his personality that I haven't played before.
Which is exciting. And Fumi, you're playing Oryx. How have you found sort of stepping into this dystopian world, this kind of amazing, imaginative creation?
It's been very, I don't know, it's very complicated, difficult for me to understand her. But the other day, Wayne was telling us who our character is, and I was telling William, actually, it's so difficult to express the character, but he told me that sometimes it's enough to just understand who you are, and then just be the character. And so I'm trying to figure out who Oryx is now.
Yeah. And Joseph, you're playing Jimmy, around the snowman, around whom a lot of the action revolves. What are the challenges really that you're finding making the piece?
Oh, challenges? I'm just loving it. I think Jimmy in this storyline represents love. He's ended up as this kind of like sacrificial lamb raising this new nation, as it were. And what's kind of happened is we find him really broken, and I don't think he knows why he's broken. He can't really understand his memories as such. There's a flaw in his recollection. So he's kind of trying to process these memories and also remembering the love he had for his two closest people in the world, but also remembering how maybe that love may have had a darkness to it, and also trying to raise this new nation at the same time. So I think for him, there's a lot of weight, there's a lot of responsibility, and it's kind of fun to play someone cracking under that, and to also surpass it.
Yeah. Well, I think time has come to stop talking and to let you show what you're all up to. So let me welcome back Wayne McGregor and assistant to the choreographer, Amanda Isles.
Amanda's there. Hi. Hey. I'm going to tell you a very quick Margaret Atwood story. So when I saw Margaret in Canada, one of the things she was desperate to show me was her tap dancing, which I obviously was very shocked about, and it was pretty good. So, but there is no tap dancing in this. We're going to just work a little bit. We've had already a 6.5-hour day, so we're going to work on a little, so I'm really happy you came, thank you. We're going to work on just a part of Act 1. And it's the first time pretty much that you see these three characters dance together. You know, Joe was talking about this kind of trying to build and remember his origin story, his history. And he pieces together this story in a myriad of ways through flashback, and they're not always that reliable. But this is one of the versions of his trio. Should we just walk through it for a little bit before we have a little go? So, just a reminder that Will is Craig, Joe is Jimmy, and Fumi is Oryx. So Joe has just had a little storytelling little moment, and we're just going to start here. So, you know, just in terms of attention, where are you looking at the beginning? So Joe, you're coming round in this big vision moment. Will, what are you thinking?
I think I'm directly Fumi.
Fumi, great. So So Fu, are you straight with Will? Okay, great. And then? Love that. Okay, great. So you're going to welcome into that little place. Okay, try and make that less even. Right now it's lang, lang, lang. I want day, dad, and day. Less even. Yeah, better. Okay, yeah, great. And a little bit more towards the face, like so it doesn't feel like a train track. Yeah, just really, really clean on the face. There we go. Better. Great, nice, Fumi. Wait, oh, I'm great. Can we have a bit more flow? So Fumi, you know when you come into it, when you're turning, you turn in, move, way, move. A little bit more? Yeah? Okay, great. Go. And, fantastic. Great, Fu. Lovely. Just up a second. Whoa, okay, great. Nice. So Fumi, how far can you go this way? A little bit more. I'm sure you've got more in there. There we go, knew that. Fantastic, love that, great. And down. Great, Fumi, can you just take a little bit longer down Craig's arm? So you just like pull down a little bit longer. Fantastic. Joe, a bit more space so you can have a bit more, really vroom back. Vroom back, yes. There we go. Fumi, great. Okay, stop a second, lovely. Okay? Yeah, this is great. More here. This leg that's coming right the way out that side, so a little bit more towards me. Down, wait, there we go. Great, love that. Hang on a second. Fumi, are you landing like this? Or are you landing, how are you landing? Oh, I love that. Did you see that time? She was much more here. Off, more danger. Yeah, Joe says with a grin, more danger. Jimmy. Yeah, lovely. Fumi, that's fantastic. Yeah, a bit more spring then, so it doesn't look like a lift. So Fumi, as you come here, you go, and they just happen to amplify you, rather than like lifting you up. Let's try that. Xiang. Way down, way, gorgeous. Yeah. A little bit more space, Will, if you can. Yeah, a little bit gorgeous. Yeah, really nice. Love that. Fumi, great. Fumi, is there any way from this tilt you can go more this way with the head? Coming out of the head this way. A little bit, yes, you can a bit more on that corner. The tilt is fantastic. Yes! Oh, Will, can we just go a bit slower? Because now she's got that amazing background. So I just want to see. Fumi, what do you think? She's there. She's there. She's there. Okay, cool. Wow, gorgeous. There we go. Thank you. Love that. And then up and through. Great. Okay, that second, this a little bit more so you look at her and then you share the look of her with you. So, Joe, is there any way you can go less round and you can rotate Fumi a little bit more? Xiang, beautiful. Great, thank you. Will, dang, yay, off. Off. Yeah, exactly. Xiang, off. Jiadang. That little twist. Yes, thank you. Great, then Fumi's easier to get through. Love that. Very nice. And she's around. Joe, more? Yeah. Yes, yes. You know, they're just the aspiration of that, right? So you're more flow. Here you go. Jiadang, bam, wow, gorgeous. Love that. Fumi, nice. Great. Will, lovely. Will, dang, ada, out, boom. Yeah, just really clean on the end of it. So it's like a little full stop. Beautiful. Love that. Joe, a bit longer? Oh, yeah, cool. Just a little bit longer in that rotation so I see it. So more combre. Yeah. Nice job. Fumi, great. Way. Fumi, nice, thank you. Okay, stop a second, just a little bit longer. Down. Longer, just a little bit, if you can. Down. Way. Lovely. Phew, that little développé, fantastic. Do you need a bit more space then? Are you okay? I think I could do with a little bit more room, more negative space between you. Even more like feeding arms, like more, yeah, great. Yes, gorgeous. Love that. Oh, I like that. So you're doing that. So you going, is your attention there back to, yeah, that was really good. That's it, Fu. Xiang, beautiful. Love that. Here we go. Away. Joe, that's good. Will. Wow. Okay, well, how can we...
The twist.
Just more like, rather than, What do you need? Do you want to jump? It's like, maybe not. I think it just needs like just a little bit more twist so that I get more shape long. Yeah, just a little bit, maybe not jump. Yes! Fumi okay? Yeah, great. Okay, Joe, okay, cool. You know what, the lift when it starts is really good. I'm not so keen on the management of it here. Yeah, the hook, basically. It's just or it's just that you go hook and move. That's motion, right? So I just don't see it's not so... Very better. Great wheel. Fumi, lovely. Thank you. Love that. Great. Okay, stop a second. You know that where your leg is here and you stay in that combre, how do you do that? How can we just, so you stay more, can you? Yeah, more to him. That's it, Fumi, that's it, beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, exactly that. Absolutely brilliant. Joe, a little bit further away. So come away, find the idea and move. Yeah, exactly. Gorgeous. Whoa. Yeah, lands. What's that line? Here we go. Whoom. Right. That's okay, normally, right? Are you doing... That's it. Beautiful. Good job. Fumi, nice. And away he comes to this little place. Yeah, you know, there just needs to be more consensus between the three of you. Like really register that you're doing, like a little just breathe together. Just feel that it's one thing. It's one kind of unison. There we go. Beautiful. Oh, do you need a bit more room? Food, you okay? Maybe a little bit, yeah, a little bit more room. So. Wow, nice, Joe. Fumi, are you going on that diagonal or are you going to go flat? Yeah, I think it's good. Flat is good. So there's a little bit here, go more there. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Beautiful. And this is the gentle through. That's it. Great. You reached him. Oh yeah, okay, great. So that's great. You know when you're up here, is there a way you can reach back to him? So you're really like looking for him and you find him in that little moment. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Endless. Yeah. Gorgeous. Then, you know you're just slightly out of time deliberately. How do you make it look like not a mistake? So you're not in canon, but you're phasing, but it's not a mistake. It's not a bad unison.
Should it be you need to follow?
Try. Maybe it just needs a little bit more. He's alert. Yeah, maybe that helps us. Yeah, a little bit. That's great. Yep. From de yam, dam yam. Yes. More. That's it. Great. Beautiful. Fumi's going. Shung. She's there. Wheel nice. Great. Okay, that's gorgeous. So the into that is really, really nice. What do you think about your arms? So I thought that was really beautiful. I thought you were really great here, but then I think it just still needs a little bit of life on the top. I don't know how you'll do something beautiful, but it just needs to keep going, the arms. You can just, a little bit more breath, yeah? Okay, great. Then, with a bit more off. Chiong. Chiong, that's it. Yeah. Well, okay, push me on the floor. There we go, gorgeous. Beautiful, Joe. Yeah, oh, Fumi, that's a nice slide. Down, way. Yep. Liking that. Fantastic. Okay, hang on. Okay, great. So, what are we doing there? Yes. So I think all of that's really good. I think this is really good. But then you did like a whole load of like looking. I kind of think I think Fumi, you need to come like this, and you need to just do the kind of the exit. You don't really need to respond. I think she just kind of like goes, like vanishes into that vanishing point like that. Or is it being too like kind of naturalistic? Let's see what Fu does. So she'll. No. It's tricky. Yeah. in a way, if she's like a figment, she's not really there, and your next attentional thing is each other. So actually, from here, she's already gone, and all I'm doing is thinking about Craig or thinking about Jimmy. So I don't actually see her go, and I just see that kind of extend away. Wow, be nice. Love that. Love that. New story. Whoom. Great. Joe, what is it? How, you know, here, you going here and then here? Are you going like in a sixth, or what are you doing? Okay, yeah, yeah. So it's nicer with that little really beautiful pointing foot. Xiang. Yeah. A bit more off, so Will's not quite on his leg. Oh. He's going to die, but you're going to save him. Great. Oh. Oh. So Craig, so Craig. Jiang. That's it. Will, that's great. Beautiful job. Just more, Josie, more kind of like spidery. Yes. Gorgeous. Whoa. Will, that's great. Can you go when you reach here? Can you reach also there? So you kind of like leg and yeah, that back leg. That's it. Beautiful, guys. Up. Joe, is there any way we can get an artificial timing? Okay. So he's up a little bit. This idea is suspended a bit longer, and then he moves, kind of like hyper real. Chiang. Way down. Wow. Yes. Great. More slide, less. More like the picture like blurs and slides. Slide down. I think, what do you think? Do you think, if you, yeah, maybe so you can go up for a second, let Will just take you off a little bit, and then the picture slides like that. Try that. Beautiful. Joe, nice. Will, thanks. Yep. Lovely. Chiong. Oh, that's the best one so far. It's because you've got an audience. Jump. Great. Yeah. Wait, are you going here? Are you going knee? What are you doing? Just I just want to get, or arm. I can't tell. Are you doing? So are you doing like wide and then knee like that? I don't mind. It's just I want to be you both. Okay, cool. That's great. And then are you keeping the knee, keep it all longer. Yeah. Yeah, stay longer and then come in a little bit later if you can. Just a little bit, like. Beautiful. Great. Joe, how can you go rather than. Oh, okay. Yeah, so wow. Way more like. That's it. Yes, more. Joe. That's it, yes. Yeah, beautiful. Nice, guys. Lovely. Really tender, huh? Just this really land that the tenderness of that one. Okay, I love that. Full out, yeah. And remember, we're doing this fade. The whole thing fades away in a way. The physicality's fading. Great inside leg, fantastic. Great. Can you see him there? Can you see him there, Joe? Yeah. You can? Your eyes upside down. Yeah. Love that. Easy. Tender, that's great. Round away. Lovely. So you're on your own. Is it a bit, Will, is it a bit, can you get a bit more? It's like your Titanic moment. Kate Winslet, here we go. You're there. That's it. Yeah, exactly. Really, really lullaby him. It's like a lullaby. And he goes back to sleep. Nice, Will. You know, is there any way, you know, the last moment with him, that it takes like a kind of an extraordinary amount of time to leave him? Yeah. Almost that you, like this. It just takes a much longer time. That's better. we've got this. Beautiful. Lovely. Should we have a little go? What do you think? Let's do it. Joe, where do you want to go from? Where just a bit before then. Amanda, where can we go just before?
Should we go from high, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Joe has a long solo before this, so this is his first version of storytelling. And really widescreen by the time you get there, right? Yeah, cinema screen. Okay, great. Yeah. Well done, guys. Thanks so much. Yeah, really nice. Beautiful. Okay. Great. Well done. Thank you. Yeah! Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Great, thank you. Well done. Really beautiful. So, thank you. 5 minutes? 5 minutes? Yeah? Great, thank you. Fumi, thank you. Joe, thank you very much. Beautiful job. Yeah, thanks so much. Okay, good. I asked Will if he would stay for like 5 more minutes. We just do one more thing. So Craig has this, we call it the Steve Jobs solo, which is kind of it's a kind of a vision solo. It's like him launching his, new Apple product. But it happens to be this bliss pill. And it's a thing of great imagination. It's the only I guess it's the only time that you see Craig in his kind of most amplified, ecstatic, kind of fullest self, his most creative self. And it starts quite small. What do you want? Should we just do it? Let's just do it. Yeah, let's do it, man. What do you think? DJ on this side. It's a different act. So, Will, we were talking today, weren't we, just about that the beginning of. I think you're there in this this block of light, and you're just here. You're processing the whole objective world, if you like, as you watch. And then, as the stage clears, I think you realise this is your space, this is your moment. You manifest this moment into there. Amanda, okay?
What do you normally have it in?
Surely the end of the stroke.
And I just need to play.
Let's just check, yeah. Yeah, about there. Okay, great. Should we be a bit louder? Yeah, very nice. Good job. No notes. Great, thank you. So, amazing. No notes. Goodbye. Thank you very much. I don't believe you. Yeah, no. So, thank you. Right. We're about to talk about music, and I just thought it would be really lovely to see one of the ways in which Max has structured the sound. We're gonna talk about that, but just this theme that kind of is iterative. It ends all of the acts in a different variation with a very different kind of feeling. And this is the end of Act 2, and actually as Craig feeds the pill through Oryx to a whole community of people, you see first of all the ecstasy of all of these communities dancing with Craig, and then you see them in basically terminal decline. They die while he is at his most ecstatic, and it's jolly, right? Definitely come. And they end up in a kind of a burning pyre of bodies, and he, I won't tell you what the very, very end is, but dancers, thank you very much. Yeah, really nice. Thanks, Sarah.
So having Wayne is like having a very good warm-up person, so I can say thank you so much to all the dancers, but we are now going to sit down and have a conversation about the music. And so Wayne's going to come back and join me, and Max Richter, who composed the score for MADDADDAM, is coming out too. You started actually something I was going to come to later, but let's start with it because we've all just been listening to the music, which was such a treat. And one of the things you've talked about with writing this score is the sort of different styles within it. So perhaps you'd talk a little bit about that, about how you chose different sounds and different, completely different styles of music.
Yeah, well, the books are very multidimensional. You know, there are sort of really big canvas events. It's a huge story. It's a global story, socio-politically. But then we have, the mechanism of the pandemic and all these personal relationships. All these people sort of adrift in it and trying to navigate their way through it. The Quakers, all kinds of strands. So it gave me an opportunity to make a very sort of multifaceted musical universe, to really try to make an inquiry into possible connections between musical languages and all of these different, also kinds of writing, actually. The book is full of different kinds of writing. So yes, it's about sort of making connections.
And you said that you read them over and over again, so and trying to analyse those different styles of kind of a sort of detective thriller style and so on.
Yeah.
What kind of blends of music do you then put in, or what kind of type?
Well, I started off making a lot of material, a lot of different kinds of material. And then it's a sort of experimental thing, really, trying to figure out which things stick to which kinds of narrative.
Right.
They start to take on their own sort of intentionality, don't they, these things? And you kind of discover connections as you're making.
So how is the process of actually what was the process on this one of actually working together? Were you sending extracts to Wayne? How did it work?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a sort of a collaging process in a way. It's a kind of what if, a continual sort of what if inquiry, and then an assembly of collaging. I mean, there are thematic strands which recur, particularly obviously that material we've just heard. But really it's trying to make a kind of a multidimensional expressive object made out of these individual little atoms.
And how are you receiving them, Wayne? I mean, so how specific is what he's sending you, in a sense?
Well, I think the first thing is to say that, Max and I have worked together a long time, so there's a kind of a shorthand and a trust there. Max is amazing at delivery and making sure he sends things, and I'm always very kind of furnished in the studio, and that's really important actually. It's important that you populate the studio with elements of the sound world that you might be working with. That's really important. But also I know at the very beginning of even asking Max to do a project that he has to be into it, right? Because he's going to be spending literally years writing. And so I have to already find something that Max is going to be really stimulated by. And, I know Atwood really spoke to Max on a really, really deep level. So that's the first part of it, that actually Max is already primed. He has an amazing sense of what he wants to do. And much later, actually, he sent me a kind of like notes on his writing process, which is always a privilege to receive. And it's incredible, how you kind of find the kind of like the sonic language through ideas that you write, and then you write these little atoms and you share those atoms. And in a way, it's very analogous with my process, that I make a lot of little atoms of ideas. I'm not quite sure where they land. There might be a character relationship, there might be an emotional relationship, a thematic relationship, just a feeling of the environment of one of the novels. I can't really tell you what it is, but they become these like little objects. Max sends me loads of those, his own versions of those, and then in a way, by some kind of like magic, they kind of percolate. I'll say, Max, how about trying going this direction, and Max will go in that direction. The usual kind of nature of collaboration, and that's the thrill of collaboration, right? That actually, if I could imagine what you would respond to, then I would be more programmatic in the way in which we work, but you don't do that. You have this incredible ability to go, okay, I hear what it is that you need, but the way in which I would solve that, the way in which I would give you that is actually this. And then I get that back, and that's incredible, back into the studio, and how you might make kind of choreographic objects like that. And I think that's how we work, right? Yeah. It's kind of very iterative like that.
Yeah. To go back to the beginning, so it's 16 years that you've been working together. How did it start? How did you?
Well, I just came out of school, and I was... I've always loved Max's music, and I just remember going to we met years and years before, the very beginning of my choreographic career, but I remember a very particular moment of going to Union Chapel and hearing a concert of Max live, and he was playing in the second half of an evening with Johan Johansson, another amazing composer. And, one of the incredible things for me about Max's music is just the way in which it's kind of like a deep hook into your consciousness. Into your memory, into your kind of like memory system. And it's really hard saying this while you're sat there looking at me. But anyway, it's, it's almost like it draws something really deep from you, from us. And I think it's one of the reasons that the music is so loved around the world, that actually it's both kind of really inspiring and new and essential, but it's also very personal. And I remember that, and I was working on a project called Infra. It was a ballet that I made here in 2009, 8, thank you. And Max wrote that. That's how we started properly.
And were you interested in dance before you met Wayne? Was it something that you were interested to explore? Oh yeah,
absolutely. I've always loved dance because I sort of know almost nothing about it. And that's why I really, really love it. It's got this sort of magical hold over me. Because my world is very full of sort of text, of all kinds of, musical text, literary text. It's very sort of text-based. And actually for me, I know dance in a way is a text, but for me, it feels like this sort of magical, emotional language, which I love to be around it.
Right. And since you started working on Infra, has your process changed down the years? Do you work, because you've done lots of really varied projects. You've done Infra, you've done Wolfworks, and now MADDADDAM. But you also did sort of art installations together, like the Rain Room, and that. So has your process sort of changed as you've worked?
I don't think it has really. No, I mean, I
don't fix something that's broken.
It's always felt really conversational and sort of very, very easy, actually. It's just a sort of pushing material around collaboratively, and then, where you sort of know when it sort of catches fire that, that there's something going on.
Something going on. And how much do you change as you go on? How much are you someone who would sort of send a piece, well, send the ideas, but then fix the piece? Or how much flexibility, once you've got a long way into the process, is there?
Yeah, I mean, quite a bit, really. I think it always feels like you're moving into a space you don't yet know. So, you know, there's a planning, conceptualizing, ideas, thinking, theories. But actually, once you start to really make something, then you get loads of evidence and data coming back at you. And then you have to make adjustments, you change things. Or sometimes you just go, you know what, that's not for now, that's for something else. Or, you know, that kind of stuff. So there's this kind of editorial thing. I think it's very sculptural.
Right.
Yeah.
And Wayne, I mean, how much did working during COVID and that sense of the sort of pandemic happening, how much did that alter your approach? Because presumably would you normally be together and you were separated by COVID?
Well, I mean, I think
was it? Yeah.
Well, normally we have a Dropbox, and we put all of our kind of content in there, our filmic content that we're developing, our you know, our video kind of concepts, the spatial concepts for the show, the dramaturgical notes, the episodes that we're making choreographically, and that's a shared thing, you know, that we can go in and out of that and surf that. But COVID, it was like a hiatus, really. It was a pause, and I think one of the things I really value about Max is I like to make decisions about the overall form of a piece. So choreography is a process of organizing and arranging, right? And I can make many, many different decisions over time. And I like to have the option to make lots of different decisions till very late. And actually, one of the great things now about the dance is that they're very used to that actually I like to do lots and lots of different versions until it lands in a structure. And I think, Max, you know, you really seem to like that. Well, that's, you know, you like the kind of the jeopardy, in a way, of fixing things at the point at which the thing needs to be fixed. And it's almost, it's a strange thing to say, but it's almost like creating that there's a moment where it can only be that thing. There's an inevitability about how the thing is formed. And those kind of things like coalesce that way, but you have to leave yourself and be brave enough to not nail it down too early, to be able to have the experimentation, to be able to get there. And usually it always lands, but you don't know when it's going to land, and sometimes it can land very late. But that's the joy of the process.
So at what point, so you nod with that, I mean, it's not what every composer would like. I mean, a lot of composers, and I know, you know, I know choreographers who've worked with them, they like to fix something, they like to deliver it, and that's set then.
Yeah.
But you obviously, what do you enjoy about that kind of?
Well, I'm interested in the process of discovering, and honestly, you know, the piece is finished, as Wayne was saying, when it feels inevitably only that way, you know. So in other words, the process of discovery is finished. You've found it. And that, it can sometimes take some time.
Does ever one of you think it's finished and the other doesn't?
All the time.
So how does that one work?
I think also Max is a performer. You know, he's touring around the world with his band. He has a kind of a sense of liveness anyway, which is beyond the compositional phase. So I think he's got a very kind of like intuitive sense about how things can go together and how things can be rearranged really effortlessly. And obviously, I'm also a dancer and a choreographer, and so we have that. So I think there's something in our actually very nature that actually really works like that. But I don't think we really have kind of like arguments about what the thing should be. I think if Max sent me something that he thought was finished and I wasn't sure, I would try. I'd give it a go and see if that pushed me into, you know, changing my own preconceptions about the thing, and I think vice versa.
Yeah, completely.
And is there a point where you come in and watch and sort of then also feel it as well? So at what point do you, because I know that you do kind of assemble the collage. So at what point do you come in and start to watch what Wayne is doing?
Well, in this case, the making was in Toronto. So I did come, I was there for a couple of weeks, wasn't I? Yeah, so I did come in and see lots of things in the rehearsal rooms. But that was quite late on. It was in a way after we'd committed to the structure pretty much, right? We made some changes. I remember lots of hotel room editing in Toronto, but it was basically kind of the bones were there.
Yeah.
But this time we've just redone it. So it's like...
I was going to say, so how has it changed since you're in it? What's going on?
Well, I think we learned so much. You know, when you make a new piece, you know, it's a huge commitment making a new piece. You're having, you know, huge range of massive collaborative conversations. You know, obviously there's the big compositional element. You're making the choreographic language and the choreographic object. You've got the scenographic thing. I mean, they're really how all of those things coalesce. And one of the difficulties, I think, in working in ballet in large-scale opera houses is you don't have previews like you have at, you know, the National Theatre, where you have, you know, 20 previews to work in a show. You pretty much have your 5 stage calls, it's on, the critics review it. That's the way in which it works, you know, and it's kind of madness in many ways. So I think, you know, the Toronto adventure was really wonderful. We were able to get out our kind of like first stage ideas. We were able to present the piece as it was then. But of course, 2 years later, we have a lot to think about and say about that. How do we recalibrate that? How do we refine it? How do we make it better? How can we get more music? What are the things that work, what didn't? You can have a kind of an objective, kind of like critical eye on it to improve it. And so I think I think it'll feel very different here because of that. It'll have benefited from this transition. And also it's our home, this is our home company. You know, these are dancers that we know very, very well. This is an orchestra that we know really well. This is a technical team that we know really well. And again, you know, they're all used to that kind of state of flux and, you know, that state of things being a little bit more, improvised. And so we've been able to take something that we had and improvise more with it, and hopefully for the better. And so we're excited to go back into our stage calls, hopefully with a souped up, better version of this work that communicates better to audiences, and that's our great wish.
And have you actually written more music for this?
There's a little bit more. The music is mostly unchanged, but there's a little extra thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want you to talk just a tiny bit more about the tonal shifts, because we've heard, I mean, I've been in rehearsals and sort of heard the techno side of the score, and then there's an orchestral side. And how have you sort of managed that really in terms of, you know, both the writing and how it's going to be performed?
Yeah, so there
Make it very complicated.
It is very complicated. There are a lot of different languages in the music. There is a kind of orchestral spine. And I think that's the sort of overall kind of amniotic fluid that sort of holds everything else, you know. And then you're right, you know, there's techno, there are hymn tunes, there's sort of hippie guitar music, there's all kinds of different things going on in there. And that's to do with the fact that there are a lot of different psychological spaces in the storytelling, and I wanted to be able to have music which spoke directly to those in kind of specific ways. Although nothing, I think, in the ballet is one-to-one at all. It's very, you know, it's a sort of responds all the time to the text.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. The thing that William was saying on the way in was how emotionally he finds your music. And when I think about your work together, you know, and I think about the Scream in Infra and, you know, the whole of Wolf Works, which more or less makes me bawl from the beginning. I mean, it does have that incredible sort of emotional power as a composer. Are you conscious that your music can do this, that it can sort of reduce audiences to quivering?
Well, I'm trying to be... I mean, I'm trying to get to the heart of things. And I'm trying to be as direct and specific and sort of impactful with minimal amounts of stuff. So I'm trying to be sort of very precise and direct and in a way plain spoken with the musical language. That for me is really important.
Right.
So it has a kind of directness, approachability, a legibility. But that doesn't mean it's, in a way, it doesn't mean it's simple, even though it kind of is simple, but there are a lot of different languages in the piece, and actually some very demanding things, especially for the orchestra.
Yeah. And also, I mean, on the flip side, this is quite dystopian, and there are kind of quite violent and upsetting. Yeah. So, again, are you consciously writing for that, or are you pulling back a bit?
Yes, there's some pretty hardcore material in the score. And it needs that. I mean, the story is a big story. You know, it's life and death. And the stakes are very high a lot of the time in the story. the material needed to go there, definitely.
Is that part of why you like working with Max, that he has got this kind of texture and it's quite a rich emotional texture?
Definitely. But I think about it in relationship to Margaret's writing. And when you read the writing, we talked a bit about the visual images that come to you when reading, right? There's a kind of a very strong visual sense in the work. But there's also a very strong acoustic sense. You know, she's dealing with wilderness and outside and inside, and she's dealing with images which have really loaded kind of like sound worlds. And I think Max is really great at intuiting those and finding kind of responses, whether that be like biopunk or whether that be what does a Pagoon sound like musically, or, you know, this is kind of he has that. But I think for me as a choreographer, the other thing that those novels have, which is so redolent with expression and meaning, is a kinesthetic image. It's what it makes you feel and how it moves and torsions your body. And I think that's the thing that Max's music does on that emotional. I would call it for myself a kinesthetic image, and Max is that emotional image, and that's how you get the empathy in the work across. And I think that's what, in this piece particularly, you might have some very extreme violence or some very upsetting scenes, which she writes about. She's deliberately writing about our contemporary culture and our contemporary context, which is all of those things. But she never forgets, and hopefully we never forget, the beauty and the poetry of the way in which we live and humanity and what that means. And I think it's that duality that really takes us forward. And it's that duality that allows us as members of the audience to jump into this world and to, in some way, see that refracted experience through our own lens.
Yeah. And I mean, when you say that you wanted Max to be interested, so when you first read the novels, was it that sense that in the vividness of Atwood's description, the vividness of her writing and that creation of a whole world was something that you could really get your teeth into as a composer?
Yeah, I mean, the novels are they're a tough read. They're very demanding. They're huge, first of all, and very complex, and lots of timelines interlocking. And some of the material is very troubling. But ultimately, they do feel hopeful. They feel hopeful perhaps in a way which is not that easy to understand if you are sort of pro-human beings. But they are hopeful. They are hopeful, but in a kind of a bigger way, I think. And that really drew me in because, there's a huge range in them emotionally.
Yeah.
Max, will you say something just about that theme, because it's so important in the work,
So we heard two versions of the kind of, if you like, the main theme of the piece. And this is so it's a music made out of several strands. The main strand is this thing which appears continuously to be falling, but actually isn't falling. And that, for me, is the kind of central image of the music, and maybe of the story itself, of the ballet itself. This idea that we are falling, but we're not falling.
Right.
There's something else going on. And the music is very contrapuntal, so it reflects, I guess, the multidimensionality of the narrative, these things interwoven. And we saw there in that first piece, which was actually beautiful to see so close up. The dancing was absolutely amazing. Three characters with three musical lines, in a sense, sort of mapping onto them.
Right. It's amazing, and it's amazing that it becomes such a full thing and so rich. And I suppose the last thing I want you to talk about both, it also does feel, because it's such a sort of prescient and important trilogy. I mean, there is, Atwood is speaking so much about what's going on in our times and for the future. It's really nice that it's framed in a kind of, in a dance way, that it has, a contribution from music and dance as well, isn't it? That, it can have another life, another audience who might not have discovered the novels as readers.
I think that's so true. And we started the conversation around, having Dante or Virginia Woolf on your shoulder, and we had the live Margaret Atwood, and, Oz said that, it was really important to us that she liked it. And I think when she came to the show and that she experienced it, she really, really loved it. And I think why she loved it, or so she said, why she loved it was because she could see, obviously, her work in the work, but the work itself was something other. and it was beyond the work. And she loved that kind of, that expansion of the world. And she thought it could only have been done in dance in that way, you know, and that those two things sit in parallel. They are not the same, but they produce a very, very different kind of refracted image of the same thing. And she kept saying, oh, I don't know how that came out of your head. And I was like, but it came out of your head. You know, this is where it came from. So we're really looking forward to welcoming her back here to Covent Garden. She's going to obviously come and see the shows here. And so, yeah, it's been wonderful, that journey with her.
Yeah. And it's actually brilliant for us to have had, you know, some insight into the creation of MADDADDAM and particularly of the music. So thank you so much, Matt. Thank you so much, Wayne. Sadly, that's all there is time for tonight. But you can come and watch MADDADDAM at the Royal Opera House. There are tickets still available for its run from the 14th to the 30th of November. And so that all that remains for me to say is thank you to all our guests this evening. And thank you all for being with us, both here in the theatre and worldwide.
Thank you.